Hello and welcome to my dining room. I have a dining room now. I'm a fancy person, no longer living in a trailer. I recently got one of the stained glass kits on Amazon, and if you're anything like me, and I know I am, I went right into it and I ended up like messing up a few things. My first piece came out totally bizarre, and my soldering iron I kind of messed up. So I went on YouTube and I found a bunch of bits and pieces videos, but I didn't really find one that was like start to finish with those kits that you find on Amazon. So I'll link that kit below in the description box. But this is I'm gonna do the whole thing, the whole process. And off the top, there's a few things that are not included in the kit that I highly recommend having, or just like making some type of version of your own. So one of them is just donating one of these kitchen pans, a metal pan, to your crafts thing. It just gets really messy, and I use this when I'm doing the soldering, so there's no possibility that I could like break through anything. Just donate one of these to yourself. Go to the Goodwill and get one. And then this is actually one of these like for quilters, but I have been cutting my glass on one side of it. You know, we're a reduce, reuse, recycle household, so I still use the other side for fabric. It's working okay. But I cut my glass on this. The couple other things, steel wool. We'll get into that later. If you have an UV glove, this is really helpful. It's kind of goofy, but it's very helpful for the soldering part of the process. And then either tracing paper if you want to illegally download someone else's, stained glass pattern, or you see something online that you're like, that would make a great stained glass pattern, or just like regular paper. It doesn't really even matter. But you're gonna want to start with a pattern. So that's what we start with first, is a pattern. And I'll go into safety and how to work the things as you get to that step. But I'm a very like step-by-step person, and it was just it was very difficult going on the YouTubes and just not finding the things that I wanted. Okay, so first things first, you're gonna wanna make a pattern. And like I said, you could either take a piece of tracing paper and pull up your tablet or computer, find a like really cool piece and trace over the pieces of glass, trace over every single line. Or if you kind of know what you want to do, I'm gonna make a piece of pizza for this one. You're gonna draw it out, and then we're gonna cut it out like a puzzle, like when you were little and you made your own puzzles. Maybe that was just me. So I'm gonna make a piece of pizza, and it's gonna go on the like bigger pieces side rather than going really, really small. It's very difficult to cut intricate, tiny pieces of glass. Of course, we have the glass grinder comes with the kit, but you don't really want to rely on that. And it takes a lot of time to grind a bunch of like messed up pieces and stuff like that. So just try and go with a pattern that has bigger pieces with no small, thin pieces of glass. It's just going to get harder for you, especially in your first couple times, like my first couple times. I was trying to make a mountain and ended up looking like a stick figure. Don't know how we got there, but we did. And you know what? The great thing about stained glass is you can just break that glass, and as long as like the solder parts come off pretty easy, you can reuse it. So that's pretty cool. All right, so we're here with our big stuffed crust pizza, and it's my outline of my pizza, so that's roughly how big it's gonna be. And I'm gonna do the lines that's the crust. Circle pieces are hard. If you're gonna go for it. I'm gonna go for, it's gonna be just a plain pepperoni. We're not going crazy here. And so I'm drawing this pattern, and I realized that's going to be really freaking hard to cut on glass. So you know what? Doesn't even matter. I'm just going to make that a big piece of pepperoni, and this is going to be a smaller towards the middle piece of pepperoni, and we're going to do a half circle piece of pepperoni, and That looks good. So this piece is going to be yellow, and you can write notes on these so you know what piece of... Boy, come on up. He likes to be a part of the crafting process. So you can remember what piece to cut. But obviously this large piece right here is not going to be one continuous piece of glass. That would just be crazy. It would be really, really difficult. So I'm going to kind of put some lines in here to show me like, okay, this is going to be one piece, two piece, three pieces of yellow. This could be all one piece of whatever color crust I'm going to do. And then these obviously are going to be different colors as well. These little drips that I did, thought it looked cool. It's probably going to be really hard. I'm probably going to not be super happy about that later, but that's totally fine. And I'm going to kind of like, I'm going to leave it. I always do this. I always mess with it too much. Not necessary. So the next step is you're going to cut these out, and I number them left to right. You just do it however it's going to make sense to you, and you're going to number it so you know is this helpful when you have a piece with a lot of different pieces on it. Kind of when you're cutting out the pieces, what order they go. It's like cheating on a puzzle. Anyways, okay, I'm going to pause, cut these pieces out just exactly how they are, and then I'll come back. Okay, so we've cut up our little faux puzzle, and now we're gonna move on to the glass cutting step. You can just set your puzzle piece aside, get whatever apparatus you're gonna be cutting on, and get the glass cutting tools ready. So a few of them, I'm not really keen on using these, they're not pliers. I don't know what they are. These I'm not very keen on, but they're really good for if you have really bitty tiny pieces on your thing that you're trying to pull off. But I usually stick to this and the glass cutting wheel, which is still in the box. I'm gonna grab that real quick. Okie dokie, I'm back. I found my little glass cutter. It's not sharp, and I have no earthly idea how this works. I did read though, after I did my first take, that oil helps this little guy glide. And so some people have really fancy pens that have oil in them. Here's the deal, we're not fancy here, and I just took some like kitchen oil, and I used that on my last piece, worked totally fine. So what I've been doing is getting just like a little cup of oil, and then putting it on the wheel part of your glass. This is not the cutter. You didn't come here to actually learn anything about this. You came to get a beginner's situation how this works. Just get enough oil on there that you can kind of see it's well oiled. This is just going to help it glide when it's scoring the glass. So now we're going to be getting ready to take our pattern pieces, put it on glass, trace it out, and we'll get to the next step, okay? This is what it looks like when I've kind of just placed out all of my puzzle pieces onto the glass that I think it's going to go onto. You're going to want to position them so you're losing the least amount of glass, just so you can keep doing more of these in the future. Otherwise you're going to have a box like that, which is totally fine. It doesn't matter. The next step is I'm going to trace these out with a permanent marker, and I am going to try and keep the piece with the number on it next to the piece of glass that it corresponds to. It'll just be less confusing. I ended up having to cut a few of these just so I could get enough of the colors. It's gonna be a very red pizza, which it doesn't matter. This is your craft. You do however you want. So we're gonna trace them over, and then we're gonna come back for the cut-in. Okay, so hopefully you can hear the noises, the ASMR that is gonna happen in this next step over my wash machine, because there's a very particular like crunch noise that's gonna happen, and that means you're gonna have a good, clean, easy break. And if you don't hear that like, it's not gonna break very well, or it might break but not in the right way. So just try to get the right amount of pressure on the glass. It's not like a really strong person could do this. I think 11, 12-year-olds could do this craft. It's just listening for the right like angle. I hold mine like a pen, this is just a wet cloth, and I wipe down my surface in between each glass cut so I don't have glass sticking on here that could break the glass. So you start at the end and try and do big long strokes. And yeah, make sure you got a little bit of oil on there. There's that noise. It's like a crunch, 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 crunch. And I just did a big long stroke just to kind of show. Hopefully everyone could hear that on there. And I take the whatever tool we want to call this with the diaper on the end, and easy clean break. That's perfect. That's not how it went the entire first time I did this. So again, get just a little bit of oil on there, dab off any excess, and now we're gonna go try and I'll see how far I can go. Doesn't matter. Whatever. This is fun, right, Poyo? All right. Make sure you hear the crunch. Maybe crunch isn't. Oh, and see when it stops, you're like, oh, I'm doing it at a weird angle. I'm not getting a very good run at it, so I'm just going to start back over. You can kind of feel where it was already scoring or whatever we want to call it. Perfect. Maybe. Who knows? We'll see in the next step. Pretty perfect. Okay, not the greatest break. Right where I kind of heard that it was not doing that anymore. Okay, but it ended up being totally fine. Now take all your little, or your big scraps. Who knows if I can use these again. That's a future me issue, and it's a future me thing. She'll deal with that later. Wipe down my surface, because there are little glass shards, but you know, honestly, as far as like a craft that I like to pick up in the middle of nowhere and know nothing about, this one's pretty clean, because your clothes are going to be the same exact cleanliness at the end of it, which is great. You know, electroforming, you might get a little dirt, you're going to get a little dirty. Painting, you're going to get a little dirty. More involved than, say, crocheting, but this is like a wowzer craft. Like everyone's like, wow, look at what she did. Okay, so there's my crust. Looks just like my piece there. Totally fine, worked out okay. I'm gonna keep going through. It's about the same process over and over again. Circles suck. I don't know what to tell you. Oh, one thing that I will say is if you have, of course you do because you bought the same Amazon thing I did, the textured glass that it comes with, I call this the Pizza Hut cup glass. Cut it on the flat side. It's way easier, just better. So if you're doing a pattern that it would matter, mine doesn't because it's circles. If you had something different though, and you wanted this side to be showing, right, you're gonna flip your puzzle piece over. That's a math thing, but it's gonna like, then your right side facing is gonna be out. I'm terrible with that stuff with fabric too. So ask me how many times I took figuring that out. A few. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. Maybe I'll do one more on camera, and I'll do this one because it's the texture-y glass. So I traced it on the exactly I just said, okay? So it looks like I still have oil on here, so I'm not gonna waste olive oil in this economy. And yeah, I'm using olive oil. Sue me, I don't know, it works fine. Sounded good to me. What are we all doing with our stained glass scraps? What craft are we doing? Are we getting into mosaic next? You know, because every once in a while when I'm driving around town, I see those, you know, those things that wires are like wrapped up around. That would make a really cool table, but really just like boring. We could like mosaic atop of one of those, and that would be really fun. Alrighty. What is everyone's old, because I know all of you watch old television shows that you've already watched 1,000 times. What is everyone's craft show they're watching these days? I have been getting really into rewatching Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. She's great, really fun, ahead of her time. But let me know in the comments, what are you guys watching these days? Okay, I'm gonna finish cutting all my pieces. They're very boring and I have absolutely nothing to talk about. I'll come back the next step, which is the glass grinding. Very fun. Okay, I'm back real quick because I wanted to say I remembered one thing, a little hot tip. When you're doing pieces that are circles or have a lot of curves, it's easier to cut off a bunch of tiny pieces from it than it is to just use this tool and go all the way around. So example are my little pepperoni buddies. They are circles, obviously. That'd be really cool though if you had square ones. So I'm going from end to end and just cutting kind of like a little bit of a curve, but mostly a little piece of straight. Otherwise, when you come in with your little diaper plier tool, you risk breaking the piece that you're trying to use for your stained glass. So that's about the size that I took from there. And I'll just keep going around. A little time consuming, but I'd rather do the time consuming route than break a bunch of pieces that were supposed to be part of the thing. So that's my hot tip in the middle of glass cutting. Scoring. All right, so I've got all my pieces cut out and I'm just tidying up this space because little glass shards do tend to come off. But honestly, like as far as, you know, cleanliness crafts, it seems pretty clean if you have you know, resources like water and paper towels to help you in between the breaking. So I'm all done with that now. I've cleaned off my little tool. Sometimes there's like little glass shards that get caught in the little wheel. So I've cleaned that off and just thrown it back in my tub of stuff. And the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna prep up the grinding area. I do that in the laundry room because it's wet and it just seems like laundry rooms are a place for wet crafts. I don't know, you can do it wherever, but this is where you're gonna want to wear some glasses, and maybe if you have like really curly hair, wear something over your hair so if something does like fling off, like, you know, I've got greasy hair, it just falls right out of my hair. But if you have like more textured hair, wear something over your hair to protect it so if a little glass goes in there, it's not stuck in there forever. I'm gonna go get that set up and I'll show you what it looks like. All right, so I've set up the glass grinder. You fill it up with water and you can take a sponge. You're gonna wanna take a sponge and have it poke up through here so it's still getting wet from below, but still touching this, the grindy bit. And that just keeps everything going smooth. You'll wanna make sure you have plenty of water, so maybe just get a cup and fill it up with water. Just in case, you know, you start going and you're like, oh, this is not gliding like it should. I'm gonna set up, I've got my puzzle piece pizza over here together. I'm gonna set up and then do a couple runs and try and show as close as I can what it looks like and what it sounds like, because if you've never done this before, it's like, oh, that sounds like it's grinding its will to live away. Okay, so I'm gonna just get it set up, put your hair up, get your jewelry off, get your glasses on, and let's go. All right, so what we're doing now is, you know, when you were young and you had puzzles and the pieces didn't quite fit together, so that just means, you know, you didn't cut it as well as a professional. Who cares? What we're gonna do now is just cut the puzzle pieces with the grinder, you know, to get these little imperfections and weird little goofy sides off so that it fits snug up to the rest of the pieces of your puzzle, your glass. So I'm gonna do one right now and just show you what it sounds like. All right, so see how we've just kind of grinded down the hard sides of our pepperoni piece, and hopefully now when we start putting them all together, they will fit a lot better. As you can see, I didn't cut out a lot of these pieces as good as, I don't know, professional, sue me. So I'm just gonna go in and kind of grind down wherever I'm seeing there's a gap. So I'm gonna grind on this side to squeeze those two together. So I'm just gonna keep going in this method all the way across my whole piece. This is why it's like, if you can cut it really good the first time, it's better, because then you're not standing here, I don't know, in your homemade grinding laundry room. So I'm just gonna keep going. It's the same process. Just, you know, watch your fingers, keep the sponge wet so everything glides across it. This is also a little bit more of the, like, you could get glass flinging. So keep your glasses on. You know, if you want to protect your hair, this is the time to protect your hair, and do it in a space where, I don't know, if water did slush out, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But I'm gonna keep going. Maybe I'll do a fast one and meet you at the next step. All right, so it's all grinded down, and now I'm just gonna wipe it all off, and we're gonna move to the next step. All right, we are about an hour into this craft, which is the most relaxing thought you can have while doing a craft. But I figured I'd just give that disclaimer out there in the middle of this video, is that this is a very long craft. So it's like a couple hour craft. You can take these off. You don't need them anymore. You'll need them again. But now that I've got my puzzle pieces, Poyo disagrees, more or less pretty tight. I mean, I'm not like going for gold here, but it's gonna be totally fine. They're all wet though, so we're just gonna kind of dry them off. And the next part of this is we're gonna need the copper sticky tape, and they sent 2 of these tools in the kit. Honestly, I don't know. Sometimes I have a friend over, but you don't have 2 of any tool, and I have never used this one. So I just used this one. And what you're gonna be doing in this next part is you're going to be taking the copper and putting it all the way around the puzzle pieces. So, example, we've got our half pepperoni. I'm gonna dry it off, my half pepperoni. Find the end of the tape, and then we're just gonna go all the way around like really expensive bullet journal tape would look like. Okay, so the tape is pretty thin, and you're gonna try and put the piece of glass right in the middle of the pepperoni, or whatever you're doing. That'd be cool if you were also doing pizza. And keep it right there in the middle. I'm gonna try and bring it closer. So there's that side, but if you look at it from this side, you can see there's a pretty even amount of the copper on both sides. And as we go, we're just gonna be pinching it down towards the middle of the glass, going all the way around. And then when you get to the part where you're gonna be overlapping, just overlap a little. We don't use measurements in this house unless my husband's here. Just, you know, a smidge of faith over the edge. I already put my scissors away. So then you're gonna take your scissors off. And what I like to do is just get it on there more or less. You know, like pushing it down with your fingers, and then move on to the next one. I like to go all the way through so all of my pieces have the copper sticky tape on them, and then I'll come through and grind them all down. Otherwise, like my my brain, I'm like, oh, did I do that one? So just do them all at once. So halfway done now, and then I'm going to keep going. If you're watching your TV show, Doctor Who or whatever it is, or you're going to turn on a podcast, I'm going to turn on podcasts. Again, it's a long craft, lonely road. But we're just going to keep doing this all the way through and then come back and I'll meet you when we're going to be scraping it on. So you can kind of see step by step. So there's that. Okay, see you in the next part. All right, so now we've got that copper sticker on the outside of all of our pieces, and we're just going to take this tool and kind of push it down. So I'm going to do one real quick right up close to the camera so you can see what you're kind of looking for, and then I'll let you guys get back to whatever you're listening to or watching, and I'll meet you back at the next step. So let's see, let's focus a little bit. There we go. So you can see when you put it on at first, it's, you know, on the glass, but not like really stuck down there. So that's what we're doing with this. And we're just scraping it down so you can kind of see all the texture and all of that. You just want to make sure that you get a good base for this, because this is what this. All right, so this is the next pretty much final-ish step. You've got the copper sticker on your stained glass, and you're going to set up the soldering area. So if you're like me, you probably turned on your solder, didn't do any prep work or anything like that, and then maybe your solder stopped working and you're like, what the hell, I got a faulty soldering iron. That is not the case, and if that happens to you, don't fret. You don't necessarily need to buy a new tip. That is where the stained glass comes in, or the steel wool. Good for things other than just taking pictures. Okay, so if that happens to you and your soldering tip is no longer getting hot, you're gonna just use the steel wool to like rub it off, because basically what happened was it oxidized, and you want to rub it until it gets to that shininess like this, and then it's totally fine. So just to avoid that, what you're going to do is take the flux, and this was not the one that was advertised in the kit, but it doesn't matter. You're going to take the flux and just paint it with a paintbrush, not your finger. That would be really bad. Paint it on there before you start your work. And then if you get a bunch of the gunk on there, you can actually just in between, soldering lines of this, you can wipe it. You can kind of see on my steel wool, I've been wiping the like gunk off of this, but just try to keep the gunk level to a minimum. Okay, so while your soldering iron is getting hot, you're gonna take your paintbrush and the flux, whatever type you have, I don't know if it matters, and you're just gonna paint the copper sticker. Get it all over. For whatever science reason, the solder, when you melt the metal, only sticks to the copper when it's got this gunk on it. So someone else smarter will tell you if you watch a different video. That's not what you came here for. Also, heads up, this is the time when you're gonna start wearing your glasses, a mask if you want to, or I'm doing this above my stove so I can turn on the vent fan. So there's not gonna be any sound on this once I get going. Just make sure you got the flux all over. And how I like to start these now, because I don't have little tacks or anything like that to keep these pieces in place, I like to start this off by soldering little dots so all the puzzle pieces stay together, okay? so now I've just got these little dots. They look terrible, but that's just to keep the whole piece kind of from moving away from me. And now I'm just gonna solder lines across the whole thing, finish, flip it, and be done. There you have it, all done. Once you've completed the soldering, I actually just used a little bit of the metal that they give you for soldering to make a little loop so I could hang it, and just wiped it down. There it goes. Super cute. All right, till next time.